Hello. After my last dream, which wasn't all that long ago, I feel I have even more to say about the coronavirus because I went back to Facebook and somebody helpfully posted something um, that you can link to. It's from the Telegraph, and the headlines says Italians over 80 will be left to die as country overwhelmed by coronavirus. And I thought, this is a story that could run and run, and that would be more interesting than endlessly speculating about, why is everything closed down? What could be the motives of the government in closing everything down? Will life change after the coronavirus? What will be our rights? Blah, blah, blah. And that was kind of what I went back to listening to, and I got a bit fed up with it, and I wanted to share my feelings with you, particularly as that really helpful post turned up about how the Italians are now so overwhelmed that they're saying Italians over 80 will be left to die. And of course, I have made a list myself of who should be left to die and who should be prioritised. And maybe you will find this helpful in and this would actually be more constructive to talk about than the coronavirus, about, how many people are going to die. I mean, this is useless because we won't know what is true or not true. We can only be left with facts such as there is a pandemic, or something that the government is treating as a pandemic, even though some of us rather doubt its existence and suspect that our governments may be using it for their own nefarious political purposes. The fact is, let us imagine that there is, in fact, a pandemic, and that anything our government does will be in some way effective. But the point is, we won't really know. It's just, people die every day. What is the death toll every day anyway in your country? That would be a sensible way of looking at things, and how many people do die of flu and how many people have died. It's one kind of flu virus, another kind of flu virus, and supposing we actually had accurate figures of how many people died of the Spanish flu, and but we still don't know. We still don't know its origins, and even now, if you look at the records of the Black Death, we're not even sure where it really came from. We can get vague information about the rats must have arrived on a ship at Genoa, and that's it really. But you see, it doesn't really matter. So let's assume that we have the bubonic plague. I mean, the outcome is binary. We'll either get it or we won't. We'll either survive this pandemic or we won't. So really, just stop even thinking about whether you're going to survive or not, but direct your mind to something more interesting, as far as I'm concerned, about which group you would wish to prioritise. Just put yourself in the position of your leader, thinking, because we're all complaining, aren't we, that we don't believe that our governments are dealing with it properly. Some of us think they're not doing enough. Some of us think they're overreacting, and we, of course, would know exactly what to do. And I've taken a consistent position since the outbreak. I've said, well, we should just keep calm and carry on. And even if some of us are going to die, then we're just going to have to die. But we're not going to close everything down and destroy our own economies just to show the people who hate and distrust us anyway that we care about them. What is causing the most resentment? And I direct this particular message to the governments presuming to be in charge of us. in fact, maybe I should just adopt the role of spokesperson of Westerners. I mean, okay, that's quite ambitious, but okay, let me just say I claim to speak for all the people in the West who agree with me. Obviously, I can't pretend to say, be speaking for people who still don't think that the government is doing quite enough to show that it cares about us. I only speak on the behalf of those who think, just shut up and fuck off already, enough. Governments, we want to go to our football matches. We don't want to hear anything about having to wash our hands. It's, we don't care. We just want life to carry on. And if some of us die, then too bad. It's okay. We'll take it on the chin. Don't worry about us. Just let us go back to life, to our normal life. Obviously, it would be sensible not to be kissing and hugging each other, and basically bow and curtsy. And I think this is a charming European custom, and I'd be very happy to do it. And I think when people do it, they will be. Actually, it'd be quite funny, wouldn't it? This bowing and curtsying is like, well, I'm a girl, but I don't want to curtsy, or I'm a guy, but I want to curtsy. And then, of course, we have this problem of transgenderism and, what we should do. And I'll admit once that I was put into a kind of dilemma. So I have already said that I find this European practice that I used to see in movies of curtsying and bowing, really rather charming as a child. And I did actually once have the opportunity of doing that, which is when I was called to the bar. And we were told, as we, lined up to receive our, rolled up piece of paper, that I think we were to give back, because it was just, they felt they had to give something to us, like a sort of bachelor's certificate, graduates. And that we were to, the men could bow, when we went up to stage, podium, whatever it was, and I thought to myself, yeah, I really want to curtsy, and because everybody bowed, and the women bowed, I found myself bowing, and I'm thinking, oh, this is actually not so much fun. The centre of gravity kind of goes when you bow, and there's a way of doing it, and I always wanted to curtsy, and I didn't get to do it, and I chickened out at the end, and so that's my story of my nearly curtsying, and of course, if you're well brought up, you would know how to behave when royalty, in front of royalty, and you're supposed to curtsy to the Queen and duchesses and the like, and it would be a kind of show-offy kind of thing to sort of to do it, but actually it would look a bit silly if you're wearing trousers or leggings, as most women tend to do now. So then we'd have to go back to wearing the right kind of clothes, and frankly I'm not the sort of person to I kind of live in dread of thinking, oh my God, will I one day be like all these sort of terrible old women wearing jeans and sweatshirts. It just looks so awful, and you might forget how old you are and just sort of go around in jeans and t-shirt as an old person, and that would be so terrible. So actually I kind of want a dress code, like I don't know, I just sort of think, if I were in charge, what would I make people do? I would make people kind of wear certain uniforms. It's like, if you're over a certain age, and you should wear some kind, a particular kind of uniform, of male or female. So yeah. Or you could have clothes for okay, this is going to be fun for me, because I'm going, okay, this is what I'll do when I'm dictator. I'm going to give a lot of work to clothes designers because I don't want people to think, oh, be a terrible, sterile, totalitarian regime where there's no fun. I'm going to make you wear uniforms, of course. I'm going to make you wear uniforms, and your uniforms will denote clearly whether you are male or female, and whether you're married or unmarried. And I know it wouldn't, it would be undignified for old spinsters to be all, forced to wear the same kind of uniform as maidens. So I don't know. I'll have to think about it and make a list of my categories of different kinds of clothes reflecting the seniority of the people required to wear them. Of course, I think of Mao and Mao suits, but everybody was forced to wear the same thing, and that would be very dreary. And I think what would be a little bit of fun is for people of various ages and marital status and sexes to kind of have what's a word? A coordinated look, So although they would look different, they would kind of still look, nicely blended together and that kind of thing. So that would be, the post-coronavirus pandemic kind of life in the Cavian West under my rules, of course. Actually, I wasn't even thinking of saying that. In fact, it wasn't even in my mind as I started the stream. I started the stream to talk about who shall live and who shall die if I'm the one in charge of the coronavirus pandemic, and I'm the one managing the message, and and then it'll be So I imagine that this is all terrible, and everybody's all the medical services are horribly overwhelmed, and all these heads of hospitals come to me saying, oh dictator, we're in a terrible state, we're just stuffed full of people, we don't even know, we have to prioritise, and how shall we prioritise, oh leader? And then they come to me and they ask me this question, but I'll read the chat now and see how you all are, see if you're all right, and there are only 2 people watching now. I guess the rest of you in America are asleep. And then they're complaining, you're streaming too early, Claire. I kind of want to go out, so I feel I should. Maybe I'll talk to you again later, but this is as it occurs, and I think that, because everybody's talking about coronavirus, and then you think, well, I have to compete, I have to talk about the coronavirus too, but I'm not going to endlessly speculate on, how I'm just assuming people are going to die, that maybe lots of people are going to die, maybe not many people are going to die, but let's imagine a situation where lots of people are going to die and all the hospital services are overwhelmed and we're required to prioritise the giving of medical services to different groups. I mean, you can't just say, oh, let them all die, because that would be silly and callous. Hello, Jen. Yeah, I knew you'd say, oh, that would charge people would be healthier, pandemics wouldn't be such a big deal, but I'd have cut off all international travel instantly and call people to their country. Yeah, I know. This is what the alt-right are going to do, and we're going to use this opportunity to kick out lots of people. But let's just assume that I'm in charge. Yeah, typical Jen. It would never have happened in the first place. Everybody would be so clean and healthy. And okay, you're not getting the object of the exercise, which is that it has happened. It's really bad. All the hospitals are overwhelmed, and you need to decide who is to live and who is to die. And this is the fun thing. And you know what? You can all, go away and have a little think, and then you can later say, well, I've decided I'm going to get these people, I'm going to let these people live, and I'm going to let those people die, and blah, blah, blah. And, so I think any coronavirus talk would be more profitable in taking the channels I have prescribed. Oh God, God, here's Korean man again with this endless itty bitty pieces of information to show off how much he knows. Talking about the virus to which he has specialised knowledge and how it started and what conspiracy it was. You're not getting the idea, are you? I'm not even pretending to know more about how it originated and who might have wanted to do it for what reason. I'm just assuming it's happened and it's really bad, and I have to prioritise the medical treatment I am to given, assuming that medical treatment will do any good. And I'm basically saying, and nobody has contradicted me so far, I mean, by all means, come to my Facebook page and have a look. So, this is in response to the Telegraph article saying Italians over 80 will be left to die as country overwhelmed by coronavirus. And I say, how would you prioritise medical services? Do you agree with my prioritisation? Left to die. 1. Anyone 5 years over retirement age. 2. Anyone who has more than 3 criminal convictions. 3. Expectant unmarried women. 4. Drug addicts, sociopaths, psychopaths who are NEETs. I don't want to be cruel to you, Jen. But I might, for all you know, I might be, already included in one or some or all of the categories I've already mentioned. So, okay, so 1, anyone 5 years over retirement age. First I said anyone over retirement age, and then I thought, oh, no, that would be, unkind. What if they've worked all their lives and they just wanted to enjoy, a few years of leisure and cruising and being quarantined on their cruise ships? No, that would be hell on earth. So I would give them at least 5 years to enjoy themselves, and then they can go, right? I think that's fair enough. So these people I'm saying should go are people who have worked in a full-time occupation in being useful to society, and then they've had 5 years of enjoying their retirement and they can go. I really think you really can't say fairer than that. When you think of all the people who need medical care, it's like you've had your innings. It's time, and I would expect you to go gracefully. Number 2, anyone who has had more than 3 criminal convictions. I think that's fair enough. Some people might think I'm being a bit generous here. So yeah, the prison population will be thinned out quite a bit. Expectant unmarried women, they would have to go. 4, drug addicts, sociopaths and psychopaths who are NEETs. I think that's fair enough, don't you? I'm not just saying, any old drug addict, even though they're in full-time employment and doing a perfectly good job. I'm not saying, that at all. I'm just saying, these are provably people of weak character and low morals who are not attractive employees and haven't, in fact, been employed and are, in fact, employable. So it's fair enough that they go. Would you agree? I'll read the chat now. Oh, God. Jen is not getting the point at all. Just not responding, not even getting it. Just talking about your stupid conspiracy theories. Perhaps those who come and listen to me afterwards will get the point. Yeah, Jen, who hasn't got any children, says I can't refer to children as them or it. Well, why do I have to give my child a gender when I'm only interested in them as being children? if I want to talk about boys, I'll talk about boys. So I want to talk about girls, I'll talk about girls. But we're talking about... Was I even talking about children? No, I wasn't. So who would I prioritise for medical treatment? So I say, one, those with dependents. So, people are looking, you're a married father, you go to work, you bring home the bacon, you pay the mortgage, you pay the bills, your mother would, your mother and your children, lots of people depend on you. So yeah, you should be given medical treatment. And down from that, those in employment, particularly those working in the essential services. So I think that's fair enough. And I'm not saying, unmarried people should be left to die. Of course not. Quite a lot of them do very useful things. And they do a lot of useful things for people who are burdened with the responsibilities of parenting can't do. So I'm certainly not saying if you're not married you're useless and should be let go. And one of the ways of showing that you are useful is to have a job. And I also take into account, given my my 6 categories, that even though you could be neither in education, employment or training, you could still be okay. Maybe you're just temporarily unemployed in between jobs. You might be given a job. After all, people might die and their jobs might become available to you on application. Except that obviously we don't want drug addicts, we don't want sociopaths, and we don't want psychopaths. So now we come to the interesting bit of this discussion about who is a sociopath and who is a psychopath. Jen, I don't care if you think I'm normal or not. I don't care. If there's no reason for me to say boys and girls, and I only mean children because I only mean children, I don't mean boys and girls. I don't want to be forced into giving categories of people a gender when it's not necessary, just to pander to those people who think, oh, but Claire, you lack empathy, you don't care about us, and shit like that. I think I've displayed enough care and concern and love and affection for you all, considering how much I've stuck my neck out by proclaiming the truth that you all want to deny. And thank you, Citizen Reporter, for saying, 3.5% mortality, halting entire countries. It is insane. We have all gone mad, right? Yes, we have, including our leaders. And that's the most dangerous thing of all. It's like, once you think it's okay to be mentally ill, you let mentally ill people get into a position of authority over you and rule over you, and then you'll be completely fucked, which you are, you know that. And now it's time to use the coronavirus as an opportunity to rethink your priorities, and this is what the stream is all about. And if you have any honour at all, you will be talking about what I'm talking about, sharing my videos, becoming my Facebook friend, making me powerful because you trust me to tell you the truth, exercise logic, and apply the principles that I say I adhere to. I mean, unlike Jen, who doesn't even think it's necessary to speak the truth, exercise logic, or even state her principles. Why would you ever listen to her? You would be, even more madder than her. But anyway, the awful truth is that sociopaths and psychopaths are now in government and they don't care. They will do whatever is necessary for to satisfy going through the motions, paying lip service to caring about us, even as so many businesses crash and burn because of all the business they've lost, and then they'll say, oh, we'll give you more money, we'll just invent some money and give it to you, and people don't get it. It's like either we're taking this whole thing seriously, or we're not. And we're still getting mixed messages. So I want you to think of me as somebody in charge, and obviously the government isn't doing anything of what I'm saying at all. And I actually think that talking about who will live and who will be left to die, and who will be given medical treatment is actually very important. So that those of us who will have to go for 80, it would be just undignified to insist that you be given treatment over younger, more useful people. It would also be obscene and selfish for any of your children to demand that your old ma or your old pa, who's suffering from senile dementia and is doubly incontinent, to be given prioritised medical services. So obviously my categories of prioritised medical treatment, I think is fair enough and correct, that people with dependents should be given prioritised medical treatment, and if you happen to be a single person, of course you shouldn't be deprived of medical treatment, as long as you're a person of good character and with useful skills. So I think that's also fair enough. And the people I would let go would be criminals, drug addicts, sociopaths and psychopaths. And now we come to discuss what a sociopath and a psychopath is. So I actually deplore this discussion of sociopathy and psychopathy, because really a sociopath is somebody who has no principles, and actually most of you really don't have principles, do you, Jen? You don't even abide by the rules of truth, logic and morality. So, okay, most of us are atheists now, but at least you can, you should concede if you know that what you have said, you should concede if you know that the information you relied on is provably false. You should concede if your argument has been shown to be unsound or even invalid, Jen. That's what you should do, but you don't, because you think you can get away with it, because you know I can't force you, because you know it's not a boxing match and I can't, floor you with one punch, as I would in a boxing match, and everybody would know, because objectively you can tell if somebody has won or lost a boxing match, I think, on the whole. Even though it's usually done on points, and the points are counted on the basis of how many punches you punched. I think that's how it works. But yeah, if you have to analyse a whole bunch of words, then what you'd have to do is actually break down. You'd have to break down every sentence. You'd have to write everything down, and then you'd have to analyse every sentence for whether it's true and whether the argument is logical. And this was actually what I did with the debate between me and Jen. And I have provably sounder arguments when her proposition has no sound arguments at all. Maybe some of them were possibly valid, but a valid argument is only... Okay, a valid argument is basically, if all the things said are true, if the facts relied on are true, then the action proposed would be right. So it's kind of, if all toasters were gold, then toasters would be a valuable thing. But, obviously not all toasters are gold, and toasters are not valuable, really. So it's that kind of thing. So if all toasters were gold, then all toasters would be valuable. But obviously they're not. So the argument is only valid. It's not sound. A sound argument would be if all hospital services are overwhelmed by coronavirus sufferers, then for the survival of the nation, of our civilization, medical treatment should be prioritised, and those over 80 should be left to die. That would be a sound argument. And then, of course, we will have to further thin down the people who require medical services to be kept alive. And so we have decided that, or I have decided that retired people who've enjoyed their retirement for 5 years can be allowed to go. That's fair enough. And then we've decided that habitual criminals should be allowed to go. I mean, it's not necessarily a death sentence. They might, get the coronavirus and still survive. And then we've decided that non-criminals who are mentally ill and habitual drug users who have never been in employment, who have no prospect of being attractive employees, should be allowed to go. And then and also if the sociopaths and psychopaths. So sociopaths are people who lie, right? Is that agreed? Who basically follow no logical argument, who will tell lies, or are in fact habitual liars. So, we all know, I think we can agree, can't we, that we wouldn't want friends who are habitual liars, or have employees who are habitual liars, or work for somebody who is a habitual liar. And then, why is our government, made up of people who are habitual liars and who rely on no sound argument for any of their policies and who refuse to be questioned on them? So that's a problem, and obviously from this state of affairs you should conclude that democracy is dementia and Christianity is kaput, and therefore you should opt for secular Koranism because there's nothing else. But you won't, because you are all a bit like that, aren't you? So if you're faced with an inconvenient truth, you can ignore it. If you look around you and see how many other people are ignoring it too, and then you think because there's so many people like me, I must be right, which is stupid, because obviously there are more stupid people than there are clever people, and stupid people can be tricked. And just because lots of people agree with you doesn't mean that you are right. There are ways of checking whether something is right, by whether you think it's right, whether people around you think it's right, whether the people around you that you respect think it's right, and who are the people you respect, and how do you, and on what basis do you give them your respect? Now, these are the more interesting philosophical questions, are they not? So part of philosophy is to deconstruct certain, deconstruct any idea really, and that should be the whole basis of philosophy, not the shit that academic philosophers now learn at universities and waste 3 years of their lives making them themselves unemployable and thinking themselves so very great when everyone around them despises them. But particularly people who talk about normative. Well, I just want to give them a kick, or worse, really. So sociopathy, what's that? I've often said that Luke Ford is a sociopath. And what do I mean? I mean that he has no principles. He of course, a sociopath is capable of seeing the usefulness of principles, or claiming to have principles, in that habitual liars clearly know that telling lies serves a purpose. That's why they tell lies all the time. Why do people tell lies? To get themselves out of trouble, to make people think better of them, by denying that they committed a crime when in fact they did, by lying that they did something good when in fact they didn't, by lying about their income, and so on. So lies are useful, and sociopaths will of course see the point in telling lies, and also in pretending to hold principles that they don't hold. So, so I would say that sociopathy is a bit, okay. These psychologists have been saying that sociopathy is becoming increasingly common, and they're saying, oh, is it an environmental thing, or is it and of course it's like, well, it's because nobody has any principles, nobody's taught any principles, and principles, the most powerful principles that operate on us would be our religious principles. And you can only have religious principles if you are part of a group that knows what those rules are and will notice when you don't have them. So somebody mentioned Jay to me yesterday, and his view of religion is okay. He's not educated, okay. So he will use words in any way he likes. So when we talked about religion, he would say, my religion is, and he'd basically be telling me about his daily routine. And I'm saying, look, it's not your religion. It might be your belief, it might be your practice, it might be your habit, but it's not a religion. A religion has to be something that is adhered to by a group of people, and you can't call what you believe in a religion because nobody else but you believes in it. So it's not a religion, and he either couldn't or wouldn't take the point. But then, he's one of those people who's actually admitted that he suffers from narcissistic personality disorder. And this is so we have to examine what it actually means to suffer from narcissistic personality disorder. I mean, people might say, right, it just means that somebody's a bit mean, a bit, selfish, and that's it. And of course, mean, selfish people are they being logical? They're not being moral, because obviously, it's not a good idea for us to be all selfish, because we'll then be fighting each other and killing each other and stealing each other's stuff. So, the whole point of morality is that we are nice to people within our group, and this strengthens our group and increases our capacity to cooperate with each other to get things done, to solve and avoid problems. But of course, Church of Entropy isn't interested in any of these things. She's not interested in solving problems. She's only interested in, recruiting weak-minded men. Which she promises with a place in a priesthood after everything has crashed and burned. So that's the kind of sociopathy I'm talking about. People who don't really care if they waste your time, they waste your energy. They'll carry on telling their lies because it gratifies them that they are able to make, at least enough people believe in their shit for a while to keep them happy, and that's good enough for them. So they have no concept of the greater good. And I've told Jen, look, if you cared more about your parents, you'd want to get better, because you would have the empathy to realise that there's nothing more distressing than to know that your grown-up daughter's gone a little wrong. And assuming that they care about you, they'd want you to get better. And assuming that you cared about them, you would want to get better in order to... Well, because you cared about them. But since you don't, you'll be thinking, well, my delusions are capable of being enjoyed. I do enjoy my delusions. I want to lob as theocratic dictator. It's nobody's business, and that's what I'll continue to do. And that is really, the heart of the problem of selfish sociopathic people, in that they have no higher authority that they submit to, because unless you actually have the power to force them and hurt them and kick them and hit them, they won't do what you they won't do the right thing. They can't be reasoned with. They have no better side to appeal to. They are fundamentally selfish, but selfish to the point of not being able to see their long-term interest. So after I talk about sociopathy and psychopathy, I want to talk about the national interest. So I'm going to carry on talking about sociopathy, and I'm saying it's people who okay, they might not really be deliberately, intentionally bad, but they will tell lies. They will rely on illogical arguments, and then they'll say, well, everybody agrees with me and nobody agrees with you, so I'm going to ignore you, even though I can see the soundness of your argument, but I just don't, I don't like the conclusion, I don't like the implication of what it means I have to do. I don't, and for that reason I will reject it, and I will get all the people who like me to reject it, and you will lose. And this is really what the tactic that people have been using against me. And it's because they don't really care about the truth, they don't really care about logic, and they don't really care even about the morality that they claim to espouse. And that's most of you. And that's also your politicians. And that's why everything's going wrong. And what's the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath? Is that I think a psychopath, is just a worse form of a sociopath. So I think it would be true to say that all sociopaths and psychopaths are atheists who have no respect for abstract ideas such as truth, logic, and morality. Their God is the God of their appetites, their inclinations, and their mood swings. And what gratifies them. So if it gratifies them to lie, to destroy your reputation, they'll think it a good thing that your reputation is destroyed just by, shit that comes out of your mouth, which gets believed by other sociopaths. There is no belief in any higher truth. and and they're happy for the state of affairs to continue because they have really no higher aspiration to get out of it. They think things are okay enough as it is. They can get by, they can do their thing, they're reasonably happy, and that's their life. They have no particular purpose other than to live their pathetic little lives with no purpose as conveniently as possible. And psychopaths are just people like that who are capable of greater crimes. They might kill people for the fun of it. They would feel no remorse until they get caught, that kind of thing. And they would be atheists, of course, because if you did believe in God, you would know that you're not supposed to do any of the things that you do for fun. And so that's why it's really necessary for all of us to have this idea of a higher authority, even if it's a hypothetical one. So in AA, you get in the principles you get frequent references to a higher power. That used to be God when most people believed in God, and then they started disbelieving. And so fundamentally it's immoral because what you're doing is adhering to a system that breaks down your society, causes conflict, prevents clear action from being articulated. Because what you have is, let's say Jen decided to join me and we argue about something or other, and it's still possible that she'll win because that there'll be so many more thirsty, hungry men who want her approval that they know they will get from her if only they would just never contradict her in public, and they would get the female validation from Jen, and this is, she will adhere to that particular rule anyway. So and these needy, weak-minded young men would have no interest in what I'm saying because they will regard it as transgressive, even if it's logical, and it's not a good idea to be logical in a society where which is fundamentally irrational and immoral. But these people don't care. It's like they can only think of short-term pleasures and short-term gain, and this is also a feature of atheism. So there is no idea of the long term, and because atheism forces people into short-term thinking of living for the day, and if you only live for the day, you have no care for the morrow, and you won't be planning for it, and that means that things will just get worse and worse and worse, and the people in charge won't care as long as they get to enjoy the goodies, and for the moment they can stop you from enjoying their goodies. But there is no thought of promoting the national interest because it's too far away, it's too abstract a concept, and the peasants would understand anyway. But if they cared about these principles, they would do it anyway, whether they are rewarded immediately or later or not in their lifetimes. But of course, if you don't believe that you have any life after death, then you wouldn't be able to see the point of making sacrifices for abstract principles such as truth, logic, and morality now, because you'll be sacrificing your well-being, your income, your association with your fellow sociopaths, losers, morons, vegetables, etc. So really, you are a kind of herd-like group with no morals to speak of, and fundamentally cattle. And I guess one of the things is that the anti-Semites amongst you can complain about the Jews regarding you as cattle, but then you are unashamedly cattle because you are hedonists, unprincipled hedonists who won't be having children, and if you did have children, you wouldn't be bringing them up properly, and most of you are like that, because I actually haven't met anyone who says, yeah, you're even prepared to argue with me. So that's why I talk about, white men such as Cotto and Gottfried, who will never let me on their stream because they just want the prestige of having a stream that is being looked up to by the alt-right. So what they can do is just talk about these subjects in a way that is more intellectual than Luke Ford, of course. But they will propose no practical course of action because that is not their purpose. Their purpose is to get viewers and subscribers and, get their prestige affirmed through the number of their subscribers. But then if you look at the bigger channels on YouTube, they don't say anything. If they said anything, they'd be immediately struck down, right? So I don't regard my existence as, as somebody on YouTube with lots of subscribers, because, there are lots of ways of getting it, and that would mean compromising on my principles, and it's actually helpful that my narrative is never to dilute my principles, so that you always know what they are, even though I don't get more subscribers. You won't share my information, you won't talk about my ideas, you only think you must be doing better than me because you've done it for longer than me. You've got more allies, you've got more people who come to your channel than me, but you're not saying anything. But then these people don't care that you're not saying anything. These people don't care that you're talking rubbish. These people are just bigger social retards. They're just bigger sociopaths, but more useless, less charismatic than you are. So I don't think I've made any mistakes about who to let go and who to prioritise the giving of medical services. I'll just check on my Facebook to see if anybody has responded. But I think I made the right choices. So I've got two responses. Somebody saying, I disagree with 1 and 3. And I said, why? And who would you prioritise? And the response was, I feel strange consigning people to death apart from murderers, child molesters and rapists. So she doesn't want to make a choice, because I guess if she did, it would make her seem lacking in empathy. But then she's a woman, so she, won't want to make these terrible choices. These things should be left to men, and these days men won't do that either. I did get a response from a man who says, I can understand the dilemma with the medical services overstretched. However, I don't think age should be the criteria, but judgment should be on the general health of the patient and their chances of survival, as it has always been. So basically, he's saying I don't want to make a decision. So why did he say it? Why did he say it? A desire for attention, probably. So nobody really wants to, be the bad guy, to be the one making difficult decisions, which is the role of a politician, because they want you to think that they care for all of you will be okay, this is a lie that you want to hear, that you care, that the politician cares, and everything will be okay. And of course it's infantile. And the whole purpose of having of being given intelligence is to be able to make these decisions that will make people think, okay, that's fair enough. And I think the categories I've given are fair enough. You're welcome to disagree with me, of course, but I don't think you will. Because Jen is not. She hasn't made a single argument about anything at all. She hasn't said anything that matters. And I'm afraid none of you have. Very disappointing. But anyway, my hour's up. Thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you again very soon, I'm sure.